Good morning, all of my tourism students, student of management and psychology. Today, we are going to learn the social cognitive theory of personality. This theory of personality has given the Albert Bandura. This is a detailed discussion of social cognitive theory. First of all, we have to understand the perspective of all theories, the human personality theories. Human personality theory is the based on human nature, human motivation and human behavior. Number of theories have been proposed to explain human personality. Different expert has given the different personality theory. All theory has a certain conception. All theory has a certain perspective. So human personality theory, number of theories have been proposed to explain human personality. These theories differ in the conception of human nature. They adopt and what they regard to basic cause and mechanism of human motivation and behavior. So human personality theory is based on human nature, human motivation and behavior. Now we are going to understand the social cognitive theory or social learning theory. Social cognitive theory is basically social learning theory, and it is based on the ideas that people learn by watching what others do. This is very important point. This is the central idea of social learning theory. The people learn by watching what others do. This is a great motivation from childhood to adulthood or developing the entire personality of a person. Now, social cognitive theory, people learn by watching others, the important perspective. And social cognitive theory explain behavior in terms of continuous reciprocal interaction between cognitive, behavioral and environmental determinant. This is the three important determinant. Number one, cognitive. Number two, behavior. Number three, environment. So another important point, the social cognitive theory explain the behavior in terms of continuous reciprocal. Reciprocals means gives and felt. Reciprocals means gives and felt or done in return. That is called the reciprocal. So people interaction with the environment, behavior of others and one's own cognition, etc. act as a chief factor. So what are the chief factor? The chief factor of social cognitive theory, number one, environment, number two, behavior and the cognition of a person is a chief factor influencing the development of personality of an individual. These three factors are not static. These all are independent, rather they all are reciprocal. These three factors, cognition, behavior and environment, these are not a static factor, these are the independent factor. Now we are going to study the main tenet of social cognitive theory. Maintenance means main principle. The following principle can be used to define social cognitive theory. There are three principles. Number one, vicarious learning. Number two, behavioral model follow. Number three, self-efficacy. So what is vicarious? Number one, vicarious learning. Vicarious means the experience in the imagination through the feeling or action of another person. Experience in the imagination through the feeling. This is very interesting. Experience in the imagination through the feelings or action of another person. People learn by observing others, a process known as vicarious learning. People observe the others, feel that, imagine that is related with the vicarious learning. Individual choice is based on perceived or actual consequences of this concerned behavior. Second important thing, behavior model. to follow the behavior model. People are more likely to follow the behaviors model by someone with whom they can identify. That's the important aspect of the principle, that is the behavioral model. Third is the thing, the self-efficacy. Self-efficacy means, self-efficacy is a fundamental belief in one's ability to achieve a goal. Self-efficacy is a fundamental belief in one's ability to achieve a goal. Also, the degree of self-efficacy that learner process directly affect his or her ability to learn. Now, Albert Bandura's social learning theory. Now we are going to detail study the Albert Bandura social learning theory. Albert Bandura was born December 4, 1925, North Alberta in Canada. Bandura has presented his theory in a series of books with Richard Walters, a junior author. Bandura wrote The Adolescent Aggression, in which social learning principles were used to describe the personality theory. The first important book, The Adolescent Aggression. Next, in 1969, Bandura published the Principle of Behavior Modification. Principle of Behavior Modification, in which he explained application of behavioral technique based on learning principle to the modification of behavior. In 1973, he wrote Aggression is Social Learning Analysis. Principle of behavior modification, learning principle, social learning analysis is the important aspect of his research work. Now, Bandura's social learning theory of principle, social learning theory of personality is based on the premise that human behavior is largely acquired. This point is very important. Human behavior is largely acquired, and that principle of learning are sufficient to account for the development and maintenance of behavior. Bandura has done a great deal of work on social learning throughout his career, and is famous for his social learning theory, which has recently renamed social cognitive theory. Social learning theory or social cognitive theory. Bandura's theory of social learning can be explained under the following three headings. Number one, reciprocal determinism. Reciprocal determinism. Number two, self system. Number three, principle of observational learning. In the reciprocal determinism, Bandura said that human behavior has often been explained in terms of one-sided determinism. In such model of unidirectional causation, behavior is depicted as being shaped and controlled either by environmental influence or by internal disposition. Social cognitive theory favor a model cause or causation involve triadic reciprocal determinism. Triadic means three. Triadic reciprocal determinism. Number one, BEP. This is the triadic. B for B represent behavior. B represent behavior. P represent the personal factor in the form of cognition, affective and biological event, and E means E represent the external environment. This is a reciprocal BEP, the reciprocal influence or reciprocal determinism of Bandura's theory. First, the human behavior model, unidirectional model, one-sided determinism, and social cognitive model is a triadic reciprocal determinism. This is a triadic means three. BEP, B means behavior, E means environment, P means personal factor. Okay. Thus, a complete analysis of behavior from reciprocal determinism requires the consideration of all three sets of behavior, cognition, behavior and environmental influence one another. Now we are going to learn the second part of his theory, that is called the self system. According to Bandura, self system is a cognitive structure, set of function. Self system is a cognitive structure. So set of function, the perception, evolution or regulation of human behavior. In social learning theory, self system is not a psychic agent that control behavior. According to Sigmund Freud identified or invent this idea. The self system is a psychic agent, physical agent and psychic agent. But Bandura said that self system is not a psychic agent that control behavior. Rather, it refers to cognitive structure that provide reference mechanism to set of function for perception, evolution and regulation of behavior. That is the basic difference between a psychodynamic theory or psychoanalytic theory of Sigmund Freud and self-learning or cognitive theory of Bandura. Now, according to Bandura, the three component process involve self-regulation of behavior through the activation of self-prescribed contingencies. Three components involve the self system are self-observation, judgmental process and self-response. The self-observation, first, number one, self-observation, main component of self-system, self-observation, judgment, self-response, and another important component of self-system, that is called self-efficacy. Self-observation means it looks ourselves, our behavior, keep tabs on it. Judgment, we compare what we see with standard. We each and everybody fixed about our standard. We try to compare within our standard. Self-response means it is a comparison with our standard and give yourself rewarding the self-response, and punishing self-response, rewarding the self-response. Reward and punishment also they involve with the self-response. And finally, very very important component, that is called the self-efficacy, a very important concept in psychology that can be understood well with self-regulation is the self-efficacy. I discussed already the self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the fundamental belief in one's ability to achieve a goal. Self-efficacy is the fundamental belief. By the help of this belief, one's ability to achieve his or her goal. Self-efficacy play important role in Bandura's theory of self-system. Concept of self-efficacy, according to Bandura, person's belief on his or herself motivated to people execute the course of action. According to Bandura, self-efficacy is a belief is one capability to organize and execute the course of action required to manage prospective situation. Self-efficacy is a person's belief in his or her ability to succeed in particular situation. This is an outstanding conception. My dear student, you can apply this conception on your thought, your perspective, your perception. Or you can see, you can observe, you can analyze from this point of view. Self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the important instrument which motivate ourselves, which help to do ourselves successfully. Because self-efficacy means the self-belief. I can, I do, and if we take this perception, we definitely achieve our goal, whatever material or spiritual goal. Self-efficacy towards the unifying theory of behavioral change. The subject has become on the most studied topic in psychology. Self-efficacy can have an impact on everything from psychological state to behavior to motivation. Self-efficacy have an impact on everything from psychological state to behavioral state to motivation. The role of self-efficacy. People, characteristics of self-efficacy: strong sense, weak sense. What are the role? The first of all have to understand the characteristics of self-efficacy. There is a strong sense, the weak sense. What are the strong sense? You have to identify what are the characteristics of strong sense, and we have to identify what are the characteristics of weak sense of self-efficacy. The role of self-efficacy, the based on character. People with the strong sense of self-efficacy have the following characteristics. Role will be identified on the basis of characteristic. What are the strong sense of characteristic? These are the strong sense. They view challenging problem as tasks to be mastered. The first characteristics of self-efficacy is a positive aspect. They view challenging. People who have a self-efficacy, they take every problem as a challenge and try to be masters of that. They develop deeper interest in the activity in which they participate. Next, they form a stronger sense of commitment to their interacts and activity. And next important thing of self-efficacy, they recover quickly from setback and disappointment. That is a great perspective of self-efficacy. What is another side or the weak sense of self-efficacy? They avoid challenging tasks, number one. Next, they believe that difficult tasks and situations are beyond their capacity. Next, they focus on personal failing and negative outcome, and they quickly lose confidence and personal ability. So, self-efficacy. The sources of self-efficacy. What are the sources of self-efficacy? How does self-efficacy develop? This belief being to form in early childhood. As children deal with the wide variety of experience, tasks, situation, develop of self-efficacy. This is the based on the childhood. From their experience, tasks and situation. However, the growth of self-efficacy does not end during youth, but continues to evolve throughout life as people acquire new skill, experience and understanding. What are the sources of self-efficacy? How does self-efficacy develop? Four major sources of self-efficacy. Next important aspect, what are the sources of self-efficacy? According to Bandura, there are four major sources of self-efficacy. Number one, mastery experience, performing tasks successfully, strengthen our sense of self-efficacy. Number two, social modeling, witnessing other people successfully completing tasks is the another important source of self-efficacy. Third, social persuasion. Bandura also asserted that people could be persuaded to believe that they have the skill and capabilities to succeed. Getting verbal encouragement from others help people overcome self-doubt. This is very important aspect. A verbal encouragement from others helps people overcome self-doubt. Instead, focus on giving their best effort to the task at hand. Next, psychological response. Our own response and emotional reaction to the situation also play an important role in self-efficacy. Our own response and emotional reaction to situation also play important role of self-efficacy. Mood, emotional state, physical reaction, stress level can all impact how a person feels about their personal abilities in particular situation. So what we have studied, this is the three important principles, three important social learning can be explained under the following three important heading. Number one, we have studied the reciprocal determinism. Second, we studied the self system, where important aspect of the self-efficacy. Third, our topic, the principle of observational learning. What is principle of observational learning? The Bandura social cognitive theory emphasizes the social origin of behavior in addition to the cognitive thought process that influence human behavior and function. Bandura argued, and has given the opinion, that some of the traditional principles of learning, such as the law of reinforcement and punishment, are more relevant to performance than to acquisition. Yes, award and punishment also motivate us. According to Bandura, learning can occur outside the boundaries of pleasure and pain. Thus, people learn great deal simply by watching and observing others. By reading about what people do, they making general observation of the world. This learning may or may not be demonstrated in the form of behavior. The principle of observation learning, this is the central theme, central idea of the principle of observation learning. To illustrate the principle of learn from watching other, Albert Bandura constructed a great experiment, famous experiment titled Bobo doll behavior, the study of aggression. From this research, from this experiment, he has got some outstanding ideas. All these varieties, all these variation allowed Bandura to establish that there are certain step involved the modeling process. This is the modeling process. Bandura did the large number of variation on the study. The model was rewarded or punished in variety of way. The kids were rewarded for their imitation. What we have got from this experiment? Number one, attention process. What do you mean by attention process? In order to learn, you need to be paying attention. Anything that detracts your attention is going to have a negative effect on observational learning. Number one, attention. Number two, retention process. The ability to store information is also an important part of the learning process. Number three, reproduction process. Once you have paid attention to the model and retained the information, it is time to actually perform the behavior you observed. Further practice of learned behavior lead to improvement and skill advancement. Through the reproduction process, you have to translate the images and description into actual behavior. So first of all, attention, second retention, third reproduction, fourth motivational process. And yet with all this, you are still not going to do anything unless you are motivated to intimate, that is, until you have some reason for doing it. Reinforcement and punishment play important role in the motivation. Reinforcement and punishment play an important role in motivation. In the theory of observational learning, Bandura mentioned a number of motives which are past reinforcement or a la traditional behaviorism, promised reinforcement, incentive that we can imagine, and vicarious reinforcement, seeing, recalling and modeling being reinforced. Vicarious reinforcement, observational learning. Like most traditional behaviorists, Bandura say that punishment in whatever form does not work as well as reinforcement. In fact, has a tendency to backfire on us. Next important aspect of this theory, that is called the vicarious learning. Vicarious learning, or the process of learning from others people's behavior, is a central idea of social cognitive theory. Vicarious learning is a learning based on the following order. This idea asserts the individual can witness, observe behavior of others, then reproduced and same action. Psychological theories have traditionally emphasized learning through the effect of one's action. Humans have evolved an advanced capacity for observational learning that capable them to expand their knowledge skill on the basis of information conveyed by modeling influences. Indeed, virtually all learning phenomena resulting from direct experience can occur vicarious by observing people's behavior and consequences for them. So these are the important perspective of observational learning which is given by Albert Bandura. For what we have learned from this theory, according to critic, they evaluate the Bandura's theory. The theory of Bandura has been demonstrated to make powerful prediction and has generated useful application in large number of area of human behavior. Bandura's theory is well grounded in research, is a very positive side, and well grounded research means the research is based on empirical. Probably the most significant contribution of social cognitive theory is to applied value. However, in spite of the merit of Bandura's theory, there are some limitation. These limitations are given below. Bandura's theory, which focus on great deal on the situation. Some researchers have argued that theory lack attention to biological or hormonal process, where Sigmund Freud has given the emphasis the biological and hormonal process. Here Bandura's emphasis the social learning, observational learning process. Probably most significance in the criticism that the theory is not unified. Concept and processes such as observational learning and self-efficacy have been highly researched, but there has been little explanation about the relationship among the concept. So each and every theory, each and every research work has certain positive and side and certain limitation. And this limitation motivated us to do the further research work. So through this study, it is a detailed discussion. The video is lengthy. This is the detailed discussion of social cognitive theory given by Albert Bandura. So the outstanding theory from this theory we have get the 2 or 3 important perspectives, the major important perspective that is called the self-efficacy. By this student, you try to apply this conception. This is an outstanding conception. This is a life-changing conception, mind-blowing conception of the self-efficacy. I think if you can concentrate this study or minutely study, you will understand what Bandura want to say, how it can be motivated us. So keep touch with this channel day after day. I try to give you some complicated give you the ideas and conception, the different theories, different conception, different perspective. This all related with our psychology, tourism and management. Thank you.